talk a little bit about the future. You've mentioned a couple of small things that you won't say much more about.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask what can we expect to see a bit more of going forward?
Well, definitely the vinyl installations will continue, and again, in general things are just getting bigger really, which is quite fun. I'm working on a couple of different commissions with healthcare spaces. One which will be at Nightingale Arts, where I've already done a series of vinyl installations, and we're going to do some wall drawings and some other elements too. So that's sort of hopefully going to be in place by the end of the year.
Wow.
And I've been doing quite a lot of educational workshops, which has been really fun. So I've been doing a lot of work with young people, mainly teenagers and young adults, talking about working in the arts and sort of teach them a little bit about how I am as an artist, how I kind of plan and work, because I think a lot of people don't really kind of know what artists do. It's, if you're of a certain type like myself, then there's a lot of, it's kind of, all artists, they run a business, don't they? But there's a lot more to do with the research and development stages, and then the actual planning and installing the work. So I'd love to say I'm in the studio drawing all day, but the reality is it's not really quite like that. But I think it is good in practical terms to kind of explain to people how an artist works, and sort of so people can understand a bit more about how you price and build your career and all of those different things, so that they can really understand artist is so much more than a maker. They're a producer, a project manager, and all of these different things too. But yeah, just I'm really enjoying kind of doing that, sort of inspiring young people to think about creative careers as a reality.
Can you see yourself going into any kind of lecturing?
I don't really have time, to be honest, and I do really enjoy it. So I'd always wanted to do more mentoring, so it's really nice that I can do this through my job, and actually, but at the same time, teaching's a whole other very complicated kind of and time-consuming thing to do. So I'm enjoying focusing on the making.
What would, thinking about going forward again, what kind of collaborations would you love to do?
Well, one thing that I'm hoping to do is to collaborate with a glassmaking studio. So I've been talking with a couple of different people. I did the residency with Derek's in Germany, and there's a studio in America that I'm talking to. So we co-wrote an application together for something where I'd be making a really large-scale glass project if that were to go through. So I think more and more now it's really about thinking about different materials. So rather than just kind of, because my work really kind of, I've got the style and feel and look to my work, so I think that I've got quite a strong footprint in terms of people knowing what my work looks like and what I do. So really now it's just finding different methods and mediums and ways to create it, making it bigger, more permanent, 3D, all of those different things. So
how did you find this style?
It just
That's a quick question that probably has a very long story. Just tell me in 2 words.
It's a process really, lots of different combination of factors. So I've always been an artist, I've always worked and studied as an artist, and just purely through exhibition opportunities and people approach me about different things, it's just kind of stemmed from there really. So I've always been interested in shapes and colours. That's something that has always been present in my work. But then the mediums have changed with the opportunities, really. So originally I was doing lots of just kind of like drawing, because I describe myself as an artist whose work is kind of three-dimensional drawing, or kind of like a extended drawing process. So really, I kind of am led by the ideas and the spaces, and then whatever happens next is really dependent on the opportunities that are presented to me.
So is there a point in time where we could go back and see your work, even back to, like you said, your MA, or prior to that, where a Fiona Grady piece of work looked very different? Or has this always been something that's like, has this been a theme going through for that long?
I think when I was studying, I was looking a lot at colour theory, and I was doing a lot of exploration into medium, and the work was more subtle. So for my MA degree, I did a series of wall drawings, and one of them was using sort of like some of them were painted with white pigment, so you couldn't actually see the work apart from when it caught the lights. And other ones, they were kind of strips of colour that were all different shades of blue and green and yellow that all kind of created this kind of like almost like, it wasn't, because it's like a tempera paint, so it kind of like sparkled a bit in the light, and it really kind of, it was quite subtle. And I think as with things, the way that they moved, a lot of my work now that I've had to sort of present it online, it did get brighter, partly just so that I could actually take good photographs of it. And the because I do a lot of public commissions, people again want work that you can see, so that was partly why things started becoming more colourful again. But I think also I was really interested in working with the subtleties of colour to try and understand what they did, and you know, kind of, I used to make my own paint, and I really like doing that because it's like if you make your own paint you can get the exact colour that you want, rather than buying it in a tube and then sort of pushing it to where closer to where it needs to be. But now with the vinyl, because I'm using a couple of different colour ranges, I have to use the colours that I can purchase, which is partly why I'm thinking about making my own, printing my own kinds of vinyl and colours and designs at some point too. But it's I think I was quite interested at some point in working with opposites and contrasting colours, so again that's why it sort of became quite bright.
How do you go about creating your own? I mean, you're going to need a bigger space.
Yeah,
some more machinery.
I know. I mean, I would. That's the the next step is to scale up a little bit. Yeah.
Where? Because you've mentioned a lot of different places. So you don't sort of focus much of your work sort of necessarily around where you're based, I suppose. You're travelling a lot. And you're from. Where are you from?
I grew up in Yorkshire, so I'm from Leeds.
Do you do much up that way, but where you're from, or do you find yourself more focused down here? How does that kind of play out?
It depends on what comes to me, really. So being based in London, London's a great place to be an artist because it's kind of the centre of things, and there's lots of people who are commissioning opportunities, and you know, through word of mouth people come and find me, and at the same time I'm always on the eye looking out for the spaces that might be interesting. And I did something recently in Wakefield with the art house. They do an event called the Art Walk every couple of months, where they have lots of different installations and artist spaces that open up for one night. And I did a residency at the art house about 5 years ago, which was one of the first sort of like real, it was very meaningful for me at the time because it was nice to be able to come back to Yorkshire, and Wakefield's only 20 minutes away from Leeds, so it was really good to be able to sort of bring sort of friends and family from the area and sort of be like, oh, well, this is what I've been up to since I left. So it was really meaningful to do the residency. But I also wanted to keep, it's really important for me to maintain ties in Yorkshire because, long term I want to be able to feel that I can go back and forth quite a lot. But in general I like to travel, and it's great that I can use art as an opportunity to do that. And COVID's kind of made that a bit more complicated, but the year before I went to 3 different countries for various art related opportunities, and I hope that will pick up again. But I'm not really worried about where the work is. It's more about interesting projects and opportunities that will challenge me, really.
What do your family think of your work?
They like it, yeah. I mean, I'm very lucky that my parents are very supportive, and my sister too, and they like and enjoy what I do, and they're proud of me. So I've never had to have any awkward conversations about why I'm doing these things. They understand, which is great. So
if we went to your parents' house, would we see lots of windows installations?
No, actually.
Why not?
Well,
surely.
I mean, lots of the practice ones I do through gallery opportunities. But I mean, my parents, they've my mum's having some work done on her garage, so we have been talking about whether I'll do a little glass panel for her. But they, if their homes are the way they want them, really. But yeah, my dad's a historian, so there's lots of print etchings and prints of historic Leeds in his house.
Really?
Although they do both, they have like some drawings and things like that.
Any of your work? Any of your?
Yeah, they've got a few things. Of course,
schoolwork?
Yeah.
Have they
not
kept
not framed. That's all in storage.
That's all in storage. Have they kept it?
Yeah, I mean, they both, when I did my degree show, they both had a couple of pieces from me, and every now and again I'll give them a print or something like that.
What did your art teacher think of you?
They like me, yeah. I mean, it was my favourite subject, and I think I've always, it's never been something that I questioned, so I always just loved painting and drawing, and I always worked much harder at that than the other subjects. So.
Does that come from anywhere that you can identify, anyone in the family, or is it just...
My mum has a great aunt that went to Slade, but really it's not, there's nobody in the immediate vicinity, and it's sort of, it does help if you've got family who are already in the arts, but I think the main sort of family connection really has just been like an interest in maths, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've got quite a few mathematicians on both sides of the family.
That makes some sense.
Yeah, I think like a lot of my family are quite sort of organised people, so I think that they probably the interest in sort of pattern and kind of like order, and you know, they're kind of quite a few musical people too, so I think that there's elements of my personality that have maybe through my family influenced the person that I am, but actually I don't have any direct sort of relatives that I met that affected my interest in the arts, but because my parents, you know, both, you know, appreciate the arts, and my dad being a historian, that they've always made, and it was actually, I should say, an architectural historian as well, so I did get taken to a lot of
it starts to sound a bit
churches
more logical now.
Yeah, exactly, so yeah, he's sort of like mainly economic history rather than architecture as such, but yeah, like he's very interested in buildings, so these things filter in one way or another, don't they?
And does the working and I suppose being around this area, does that have any kind of impact on your sort of an influence, or being around London, does it not work like that?
I think definitely. I mean, I am a city girl. If I wouldn't feel comfortable in the countryside for too long. I like the peace and quiet of it, but I need to be around action, and you know, when I'm walking out and about with my phone, things catch my eye and I take photographs of them. So I do take quite a lot of photographs of nice shadows that have been cast by railings and things like that, and windows and whatnot. So I think it's impossible not to be inspired by being in London, but I have kind of like a nice balance that I sort of live quite close to the city, but then not too far from the Thames as well. So I kind of have like examples of, you know, really exciting modern contemporary architecture, and at the same time I can just go for a wander along the Thames